Hello, beautiful mamas. As a working mom, sometimes I can really feel scattered, unorganized, or simply just rushing from one thing to another and all over the place. Finding time for myself and finding my sanity can almost feel like an impossible dream. Can you relate? Well, this is why I have created my free Mama's Guide to Creating Balance and Harmony as my gift to you. This guide contains my top 10 tips to creating balance and harmony in your life, as well as 3 beautiful trackers to help you get onto your journey in a fun and simple way. I have found by incorporating daily self-care routines and practices in my life for as little as 5 minutes a day, I am feeling more grounded, centered, and calm. By me tapping into my best version through these practices, I am also a better mom, a better partner, and a better colleague. Well, really, just a better human being in all the ways. So, if this sounds like something that you would like to explore, click on the link in the show notes below and download your free guide today.
We were all born with the innate power of knowing and wisdom within us. The challenge for many of us is that we were taught to seek answers externally instead of searching from within. And this is the reason why so many of us find ourselves going around in circles, searching for new ways, but could never find the way. The womanly way. It's not the way. It's not my way. But it is a pathway to support all of us returning back to self, reconnect with our inner wisdom through loving ourselves, knowing ourselves, and reconnecting with ourselves.
Tell me and be honest. Tell me should I've known.
So we can start to find our own way as modern day women. Are you interested? Well, sit back, relax, and welcome to this amazing journey. Hello. Welcome to this episode of the Womanly Way podcast. I am your host, Lala Angela Wang. So this is not our first rodeo in recording this episode. I've actually attempted in recording something previously, but unfortunately it didn't quite work out because little George woke up in the middle of my podcast last time and cried, and I had to put him back to sleep. So it's taken me a few days to finally find the time to re-record this. But I'm actually really grateful for this. Because initially I was just going to talk about the life of having less. A bit of a personal experiment that I've been going through. But then I realized there's a reason why the first recording wouldn't go ahead. And as you know, I believe everything happens for a reason. And I think the reason why it didn't work out the first time around was because what I was about to record had a missing piece in it. And I was going to record the missing piece as a second episode. But now I understand that the two of them really should come together. And I didn't record this when I was in New Zealand because this first part that I want to talk to you guys about is really about my mum and my dad and their amazing marriage of, 40 years? Yeah. Actually 42, 43 years. Because they were married a year or two before they had me. So I think it was, oh my God, I used to remember this. I can't remember it anymore. I think they were married in December
Yeah, and then they had me a year later. Parents these days, or parents back in those days, really don't muck around, don't they? Because by me explaining my mum and dad's relationship, I think it will explain a part of my newfound, I guess, way of life in terms of having a life of less. So, without further ado, let us begin this episode. So, there's 3 of us in my family. There's me, my sister, who's a year younger, and then my brother, who's 8 years younger than us. My mum and dad were both in the medical profession, and my dad is still practicing these days. So we moved to New Zealand when I was 11, turning 12 in 1996. See, that just totally shows my age. And at the time, my parents had decided that we are going to migrate to New Zealand because of a few issues. Well, actually not issues, but more reasons. So back in 1996, the relationship between Taiwan and China were pretty similar to now. There's a lot of threats about bombing Taiwan, invading Taiwan or taking Taiwan back, really. And so a lot of the families, where they can, all decided to move their family overseas. There were several options. There's Canada, there's US, there's South Africa, there's the UK, and then there's Australia, and there's New Zealand. New Zealand back then was probably the easiest country in terms of the amount of money that we need to spend, and also criteria to get in. But also it's been known as one of the most peaceful country, right? So my mum and dad decided to move us there. But my dad was never going to come and live with us because he's a surgeon in Taiwan. Well, he doesn't practice anymore. That's not true. He doesn't do surgeries anymore, but he's more of a kind of like a GP these days. And for him to come to New Zealand and work, he'll have to essentially go back to like intern level and retrain himself. And when you have a family of 3 and you got, your family to support, that's hard, like really hard. So they made the tough decision back then that my dad was going to stay in Taiwan and work, wire the money to us so we can have a better life. And he's going to come and visit often. Now, we all know, when we plan things like this, the universe wouldn't normally have better plans, right? So, not long after we moved to New Zealand, my grandpa got sick, and that's my dad's dad. And so dad started looking after him, but also because he's the only doctor in the family, my grandma relies on him very heavily. So he would still fly out to come and see us, but quite often, as soon as he landed, there's a phone call to say, oh, your dad's not well, or he'll stay for a short while, So it was very common for my dad to having to change his return flight last minute, or having to cancel his flight and purchase a new ticket at the counter just so he can go back to Taiwan and see my grandpa. So my grandpa had cancer, and it was a very drawn out process. So he just got sicker and sicker progressively. Finally, I think I was 17 or 18, my grandpa passed away. But shortly after, my grandpa passed away, my grandma starts to fell ill. And my dad became her sole caretaker, basically. So he couldn't really come out. He would still try and come out every now and then, like for important dates, like my graduation, my sister's graduation, my brother's graduation. He's been there for all three of us for our undergraduate graduations. But that was about it. And as my grandma got sicker, she then relied on my dad a lot more. So it became more, as we grew up and starting to have our own careers, my mum would then fly back to Taiwan and, see my dad, see my grandma, but also she started looking after my grandpa as well on a rotation. There's three of them from my mum's side. And so they all take turns in looking after my grandparents, which is great. Whereas my dad's side, they do take turns, but my grandma prefers my dad. So generally, most of the time, dad's looking after his mom. And it's actually quite common for immigrant families in Taiwan back in nowadays to do that. Once their kids are old enough, the parents would either go back to Taiwan permanently, or they would do, every 3 months or every 6 months kind of travel, mainly to look after the elders at home. And I really admire my parents for doing that. I admire the sacrifices that my parents have made for us, and then the sacrifices they have made for my grandparents. But what it meant was, out of their 43 years of marriage, my mum and dad really only spent about 12 years together. The rest of it, they lived apart in two completely different countries, two opposite ends of the world, or planet Earth, basically. And what happened was they started to grow apart. They have different hobbies. They have a different way of life. They're almost like complete opposite. My dad is a night owl. He sleeps late, sleeps in, and then wakes up late. My mom's a morning person, right? Even when it comes down to their religion, they're both Buddhist. They're both vegetarian. But my mom is more, she's just minding her own business, and she would never force someone to become a Buddhist. And she would never force us kids to become vegetarian. Whereas my dad believed that his belief is the right beliefs, and that everybody else should believe in what he believes in. Even down to he occasionally will still tell us to become vegetarian because we are just like, creating sins and surrendering to, I don't know, how do I say it? It's like he thinks it's evil and you're going to go to hell if you're not a vegetarian. So a funny thing was, in our family, we can talk about politics and argue, but as soon as we talk about religion, oh my goodness me, it's like the Third World War. World War III has sort of just broke out in a living room or in a dining room. So, as you know, George and I were in New Zealand last week. And I actually made the decision to eat vegetarian, and I made George eat vegetarian as well while we're there. Even though I am on the carnivore diet and George loves his meat. And it really, to me, like, some people can say, well, then is that self-love? Or are you just suppressing your needs to keep other people happy? Is that people-pleasing? And this really brings me to this concept of having less, having a life of less. So I'm going to jump around a little bit, but I'll come back and just kind of sum it up all together. Initially, when I started this concept, I was like, all right, if I have to be honest with myself, I am realizing that I'm starting to whinge a lot more than what I used to. And I'm not as grateful as I used to. So the first step was I started my gratitude practice again. But I feel like I needed something more. So after reading the book Strength from Strength, I decided that I'm going to practice this concept of having less. Because, so there's this equation that he mentioned. I think it might be in the book or maybe during his interview with Rachel Hollis. And he said the equation is what you want over what you have equals to happiness. So you can do it in two ways, right? You could wanting more and have more, and then allowing those to continue to grow and be happy. But that is a very hard thing to do, right? And what you find is you realize that the more you have doesn't always equal to the happier you are. What you have over what you want equals to happiness. So you can continue to have more, right? And want more and have more, and the more you have, the happier you are. But what you find is, even when you have more, you're not always happy, right? Because if you think about it, if you have more and you still want more, then it's still in direct proportion, so you may not be happier. But if you maintain what you have and be grateful for what you have and wanting less, then you're going to be happier. So I started adopting this concept, right? And I also started adopting the concept of asking myself, like, if I don't have this, would I regret it in a year's time, in 2 years' time, or in 3 years' time? Because if I don't, then perhaps I don't need to have this thing. So whenever I wanted to buy something, I asked myself, number one, do I really need this? Is it really aligned with my mission in life? Or can I save this so I can use this money to actually put towards my mission, my vision, my purpose, to serve humanity? And then I ask myself, if I don't have this, would I regret it in a year's time, in 2 years' time, in 3 years' time? And it's been working in the most amazing way. Like, even when it comes down to lately, I'm like, oh, maybe I need a new pair of jeans. I'm like, do I really need it? I've got a pair of jeans already. I've got a pair of black pants. If anything, I probably really need a pair of formal black pants so I can go and see clients with. But then I ask myself this question, well, I've got plenty of skirts that looks formal. Do I really need a pair of pants? Or is this just what I perceive other people would perceive? In other words, is this my perception of other people's expectations? Or is this purely me trying to meet other people's expectations? Or do I really need this pair of black pants? And in the end, I come to the conclusion, it's actually my assumption of other people's expectation as to what is going to look professional for me in the work environment. So I did not buy myself a pair of new pants. And instead, I am wearing a lot more of my skirts that looked just equally as formal and presentable. One of the other examples lately, I've been looking at buying the new generation iPad Air. I've been wanting one for years. And so I asked myself the question, like, do I really need it? And the answer is kind of like half 50-50. It would be great if I can have it, because what it would mean is I could do some of my business work while I'm at lunch at work, or, I can it's a lot easier than a laptop, in my opinion. But then would I regret not buying it in a year or 2 years and 3 years time? The truth is, I don't know. I can see benefits in how it will help me grow my business, but also don't know what I don't know. So this one is a bit of a funny one, but I'm just going to park it and see how it goes, because, I was going to buy it before I go to New Zealand, and so I can claim duty free, but it's not out yet. So I'm just going to wait and see. So initially, I really thought the life of living less only applies to material stuff, to physical stuff. But then this time when I was in New Zealand, I realized it's a lot more. It's also can be applied to a mental, emotional, and spiritual level. It's like whenever my dad says something that kind of pisses me off, I'm like, oh, is it worth it for me to argue about it? Or am I better off just letting it go? Right, if I argue to my dad, would I regret it in a year or 2 years or 3 years time? I will. Because I know that my dad is in his early 70s. And the older that he gets, the less time I get to spend with him. So I really want to cherish the time that I have with him. Even though my dad's like the oldest person ever. And he does say some funny things that you just like, what are you thinking? Or he'll do something that's just like really annoying. But instead of arguing with him, I just accept that's how my dad is. Right? And I think this is a way of living with less judgment. Living with less feeling like I need to react to people. Living with less like grudges and negative emotions. And it really just, it made me so much more present. And I'm enjoying my time with them so much more. I can see the beauty in all the quirks that my dad has. But I also feel sorry for my parents though. It's just like, they made so much sacrifice, and now is the time that they enjoy each other's company, enjoy their lives, but they can't because they grew apart so much more, right? But it also made me reflect and go, oh, actually, I looked at my mum. My mum is really my mirror. And so if I want to talk star signs, my mum's a Virgo and my dad is an Aquarium. So Virgo wants to live life a certain way. There's rules, there's, routines. They just want things to be perfect. Aquarius, on the other hand, doesn't want things to be perfect. They just want things to be, they just want to grow and expand and be better, be different. They're rebels, right? So one is a goody-goody. The other one is a rebel. They cannot be more opposite. And plus, they've been living apart for so long. Essentially, they have really grew apart. And I admire them so much because they're still together. They're still willing to work it out. They're still willing to stick together. And I have so much respect for them. But at the same time, I cringe so much when I see them argue about the little like, not so much argue. My mum would tell my dad off and my dad would just like kind of accept it and kind of licking his own wound in the corner. yeah, it really makes me feel, I don't know, I feel really upset whenever I am in that situation and seeing the two of them interact. But it also made me treasure the times with them so much more, because I know they sacrifice so much more for us, and I don't have a lot more of time that I can spend with them, right? So I've learned as part of this process to let go so much more. You know, I used to argue with my dad a lot. I used to really not like my dad a lot. But now I learn to appreciate him and just let go of my grudges. I really think this is partly to do with, you know, this life of having less. I'm holding on to less. Mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. And by holding on to less, as we all know, or you may or may not know, when we're holding on to negative emotions, they manifest as physical illness, right? Especially females, we hold a lot of our emotions in our lower abdominal, but also around our private areas. So what you'll find is lower abdominal pain, period pains, or even like any diseases associating with our abdomen area generally is from unreleased negative emotions. I got goosebumps as I was talking about this. So by letting go emotions, by letting go of all those chatters in our heads, by letting go of judgment, we are essentially cleansing our body and allowing our physical body to also hold on to less negativity, less weight, and creating a healthier vessel. So I've only been doing this since March, right? We're at the end of April now, and I cannot tell you how much better I feel, like how much lighter I feel emotionally, how much more grateful I am, and how much more present I am. But also I feel like there's a weight off my shoulder now. I don't feel like I'm wearing the weight of the whole planet, of everybody on me now. Because I'm able to let it go. I'm able to practice detachment. And I don't feel as stressed when it comes to finances, when it comes to just day to day, really. And I think partially it's because I don't feel like I have to have something now. I feel like I've got all the things I need. I'm so much more grateful. So I'm spending less money, which also contributes to less stress financially. And I think I've become a better mum as well with George. I've become so much more present, and our relationship has improved. I can really see the interaction I have with George. It's just so much. I can't even describe it with words. It's just so much better. You feel it better, right? We're connecting better. We're communicating better, even though he's only 2. I really feel that our relationship has improved so much more. Of course, I've just spent the whole week with him, you know, full time, and that has helped too. But we are able to be better as a team. So really, my biggest lesson learned from observing my parents, from living this life of less, really comes down to a couple of things. when we want less and desire less in terms of what we think we want, and really appreciate what we already have, we are happier. We truly are happier. And when we can apply the same principle to our emotions, to the way that we judge others, to how we connect with other people, it allows us to feel lighter. And really quite often it really is about, we think some of the things are just a matter of principle and the importance that we have to hold on to it, right? But so many of us get bogged down in our principles. We forget the human. It's like my mom, she wanted everything done her way, based on her principles. And in return, there's a lot of harsh words exchanged. There's a lot of bitterness. There's a lot of hurt that she's feeling. I'm seeing that because that's how I sometimes treat Scott as well. And that's why I say my mum is a complete mirror for me. And what I really realize is sometimes we just need to let go of our principle and ask ourselves, is this situation worth all this energy, all this negative energy that I currently held towards myself, towards this other person that I'm holding in within me? Is it worth it? Is it worth of me getting angry, getting frustrated, getting pissed off? Is it worth of me saying these words to this person? Or am I better off just let it go? Which one am I going to regret more in 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years' time, right? And I think if we all live life with this angle, life becomes so much easier. And I almost felt like I had to go through this. I have to go to New Zealand. I have to go through this life of less to really embrace my theme for this year, which is goodwill, good wealth. It's all about, the word tithing for me isn't so much about the financials. It's really about, can I give people goodwill in terms of good thoughts, seeing the best of them instead of seeing the worst of them? And I can really see why that is my word of abundance for this year. It's already bringing me abundance in so many ways, abundance in positivity, in abundance in positive energy. And in return, I feel more abundant because I'm a lot more grateful. And my relationship with people around me are so much better. So if you're feeling miserable, if you're feeling sad, if you're feeling lack, I would highly recommend that you practice this practice of having less in your life, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And see how it goes. Right? You're not going to lose anything. And 100% believe, give it 30 days or 60 days if you can, and see the difference. Witness the change in yourself and witness the change that you bring to others around you. I guarantee that you're going to feel different. So my challenge to you, as always, is to give it a go and share with me how your experience has been. I always love listening to feedback, comments, anything from you guys. Yeah. And especially knowing that I have helped you in some ways, that just lights up my day. All right, so that's the end of today's episode. I hope you enjoy the content. I hope there's some reflections. Maybe there's some aha moments in this episode. If you want to share anything with me, you can contact me on Facebook, Instagram, or you can email me. All the details are on the show notes down the bottom. I love you all so, so, so much, and have a gorgeous, gorgeous day, night, afternoon. Wherever you are, just remember, you deserve to have the best. Love you all so, so, so much. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.